Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on YouTube Live. My name is Ian, and I'll be your host for today. I'm incredibly stoked that we have Wei Sheng and Jolene who's joined us today as well from the sales teams here at Google. So, first up, if you can't hear us or if we're too soft or too loud, please let us know. Type in the chat box, and we have moderators who will come and help us fix the volume. Today, we really like to share with you a little bit more about Google Singapore, share with you a little bit more about the teams that sit here as well. So, we are three of us based here in Singapore, here in the sunny island of Singapore, which is our Asia Pacific headquarters. Marketing, operations, legal, and we really have so many teams here as well. But today, what we want to focus on is specifically the teams that help our clients with digital transformation. And in other words, called the sales teams. Now, both our guests here are from these teams, and we would love to hear a little bit more around them, their introductions, and also personal stories. We'll run live for about 20 to 25 minutes, but we really like to keep this session very, very interactive. So as you guys are watching us and you see the video, on the right of the video, there is a chat box. Please go ahead and ask any questions. Say hi, say where you're from. We'd love to hear from you. We have chat moderators who will be there to answer any questions that do come up. And also, towards the end of this live session, we might pick up some questions as well. So let's kick things right off then. So why don't we start with some introductions for our guests? Maybe tell us a little bit more about you, your role, your team, and possibly as well, maybe some brief history before you joined Google. So we'll start with Jolene.
Cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Jolene. I am from the large customer sales team. I'm part of the apps, commerce, and entertainment team as well. So, what I do in my role here at Google is basically working with clients to help strengthen and grow their business using digital. So, before I joined Google, I was in a multinational company helping clients with digital strategies, content creation, social listening, etc. Um, Consequently, after that, I went to the Singapore government where I worked on digital strategies for local hot button issues. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Wonderful. And what about you, Weisha?
Thanks, Ian. Hi, guys. I'm Wisham. So, like Jolene, I'm also in the large customer sales team, except that the vertical my team looks at is actually financial services. So, dealing with banks and insurers, both here in Singapore as well as in Southeast Asia, to help them on their sort of digital transformation journeys and figure out where technology actually can make a difference in how they deliver financial services to everyday users like you and me. Um, my background was actually a little bit different. I sometimes wonder how I ended up in Google actually because I'm non-tech and non-finance. Before joining Google, I was actually in a material science company, and then prior to that, actually quite a long time in Singapore government as well.
Wow, that's insane how we are all born, bred in Singapore, but yet come from such differing backgrounds. Well, we all know Google's a tech company, and there are a bunch of engineers and engineering teams here. But also within Google Singapore, we have what we call Global Business Organization. So, Wei Sheng, would you like to share with us a little more around what these business teams at Google do?
Sure. So, guys, I don't want to use jargon and confuse everybody, but and all of you already know that we have Gmail, we have search, we have Maps, and so on, which everybody is familiar with and we all use on a daily basis. But essentially, Jolene and I come from the side of Google that's actually what we would consider B2B, right? So our roles are actually really focused on driving the revenue that powers Google's business through digital marketing and advertising. So depending on the client verticals that we come from, our time is really spent helping them figure out where technology actually helps them engage with their consumers and their customers better. But then also where it can actually make a difference in how they build products and build new services for the markets. In order to do that, we have to understand the respective industries that our clients are from, the business models and the challenges that they face, and try to figure out what solutions Google can actually provide them. But we don't have to build all the solutions ourselves, right? A lot of it is actually working with cross-functional teams in Google, the product experts, the real engineers that do all the coding and so on, to really help bring the best that Google has to offer to our clients on a day-to-day basis.
Well, perfect. That's good to hear. Thank you for sharing. Let's dive now a little bit deeper into your individual roles that you guys have at Google. So I understand that both of you come from teams that network with different industries. So Jolie, maybe you can share with us a little bit more about your role and your team.
Okay, cool. So Google works with clients of different businesses. So we work with smaller businesses such as startups all the way to large corporations. We also work with clients across various verticals. So like Wei Sheng shared just now, he's from the finance team and I'm from the apps, commerce and entertainment team. So what this means is all the different clients have different business needs, different business goals and objectives. And in order for us to be a good thought leader to these businesses, the salespeople and the sales folks over here at Google, we constantly learn and try to grow our industry knowledge so that we can better support them and be better thought partners in the process. So, for example, I'm in the app commerce and entertainment team. A lot of my clients are e-commerce and ride-hailing clients. So a lot of transactions actually take place online. So what this means is they are constantly pushing boundaries, trying to grow their business online, and we're finding new solutions and new technologies to help them. And this is really exciting in the process because you continuously learn, think more creatively, and also grow your network as well.
Interesting. And has there been any sort of highlights since you've joined this team?
There have been a lot of highlights since joining this team, but I think my favorite highlight is actually helping one of my clients grow a vertical across Southeast Asia. So basically, it was a launch of a new product. So a lot of people think that we here at Sales, we just sell things, right? But what we actually do is a lot more deeper than that. So we helped our clients with market sizing, market opportunity, competitor analysis, and basically understanding and helping them better understand the market using the information that we have. So when we see our clients excited about a launch, this makes us also really excited as well. And when you see things coming together in a launch, it's a really fulfilling process.
Cool, that sounds really exciting. What about you, Wei Sheng? What's your area of work and how does it differ from Jolene's scope of work?
Thanks, Ian. So the biggest difference, of course, is the client portfolio, right? So banks and insurers have been around for many years. Financial services is, of course, an age-old industry in itself. And traditionally, services have been delivered offline, right? All of us often walk into a branch and go to an ATM to carry out our banking activities, at least as recent as 4 or 5 years ago. But over time, that, of course, has changed. So all of us have apps and mobile banking installed on our phone. So a lot of my time and my team and the team's time is spent helping banks and insurers really understand how digital technology actually can complement the offline branch networks that they have today. Whether it's through a better app or a better user experience, a better website, helping them with making the credit card application online easier to fill out, for example, or making their bringing Google technology to help their site speed improve so that you get a much better experience when you're riding on the train home from work and you don't have a lag in the MRT. Beyond that, of course, it's also to Jolene's point, beyond helping them with market sizing and opportunity, it's also really helping them understand their consumer better. Getting to be much more user centric in how they build solutions and how they build services for people that need financial services, not just in Singapore, but also in Indonesia and the rest of Southeast Asia.
Interesting. And well, you mentioned earlier that your background has been quite diverse. So would you be able to share some skills or helps that you can advise our viewers on what helps you succeed in your role?
So I think success in Google is really because we champion diversity in backgrounds within the teams. So myself included, of course, I also work with somebody that came from oil and gas, that came from tech, that came from consulting, that came from government as well. So I think Google really champions that diversity in backgrounds within all the teams that it has across the board. I think that's actually the big differentiating factor for working here at Google, and you'll hear that from anyone that you talk to. I think the other element of that is really just innate desire and an interest to solve problems, right? If we think about the stuff that we do every day, a lot of it is really problem solving and thinking of new approaches and ideas in terms of how we could solve a problem. I think being able to bring a different lens or a different perspective is actually more important than maybe deep vertical expertise in technology or even in financial services, for example. At least that's how I like to think that we go about our work on a daily basis.
And now we take a little sidestep into the hiring process. So Jolene, would you be able to share what you think could be some advice or tips for people who are preparing for Google's interview process?
Yeah, sure. I think just like with any interview process, you really need to put in the time and effort to learn more about the business, learn more about the products, and what we do here at Google. It's basically the same. And so basically, the learning process doesn't stop also even as after you go through your interview because things are constantly changing over here. So you really need to keep learning and keep an open mind, and that's something that will really take you far in your career. But beyond that, don't worry too much about your skill sets. Just make sure you showcase your strengths, your experience, and make sure that really comes through during the interview. And I think you'll be golden. Yeah.
This has really been insightful. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so good to hear from you guys, and also personally for me to learn so much more about the sales teams here at Google. I see that we have some live questions that have come in from the viewers. So, viewers, thank you for your active participation. While majority has been addressed on chat, we'll take some live here. So, we've got one from Rhythm Bhatnagar. The talk seems quite open. Can you please touch upon a sample of a startup which you have helped reach goals? What kind of tools do you work with?
Mm. Sample of a startup.
So maybe I'll take a stab at that. So my team handles a couple of startups, primarily in the financial comparison site landscape. So these are obviously very similar business models to online travel aggregators. So they're helping users out there really figure out, what's the best credit card or the best loan that they could get within their own home market. For us, it's essentially helping them understand what is the market opportunity that's available within the financial services industry from a consumer standpoint, right? So, what users are searching for, what do they care about? Are they looking for certain financial products more than others? So that helps the VC or that helps the startup, sorry, actually determine what products they want to go to market with. Which partner banks and insurers do they need to work with in order to make their product offering actually meaningful to the consumers in that particular market. So that's a combination of Google's own sort of insights from our own platforms, but then also helping them really understand what they need to do in terms of building that user experience online in that particular market, because everybody has a different way of comparing benefits in that regard.
And we've got another question coming, maybe for Jolene.
Yeah.
How will you differentiate Google and other tech companies?
What I would say is really different between Google and other tech companies is that the people here are really different. So the people here are very friendly, very open. Literally, you can go out there and grab anybody from any team for a chat, coffee, exchange ideas, brainstorm. And the people here also invest a lot in not just their work and they're proud of what they do. They also want to invest a lot in our culture. So whatever it is, we look for people who are really friendly and open-minded. And you know what? It's a really welcome and open culture here. And that's something that all of us are really proud to be part of.
Wonderful. Another question from Gerald, whoever can take a stab at this. Interested in how the speakers are describing their roles. How much is it similar to or different from a digital marketing consultant role, for instance?
I think I can take a stab at this. Like I mentioned earlier, I previously came from a multinational company, supported clients across for social listening, digital strategies. What I would say is a little bit difference between this sales role and what you would consider a digital consultant role is that you really take on a Google lens when you're in this sales role over here in Google. So in digital marketing, a lot of the times you would come up with media plans, online strategies, across various tools and products that are available in the digital sphere. But that changes a little bit when you're here. Like Wei Sheng mentioned, we are a global business organization. Beyond just looking at products and tools to improve and help grow our clients' business, what we also really want to do is take on a business and a broader lens across the region that you're in, whether it's APAC or Southeast Asia, and try to push their business and help them grow beyond just using digital tools.
Great. Maybe for Wei Sheng. So, a question from Aaron. What is the best and worst thing about working at Google?
So if I compare it to where I've been before, and Jolene's hinted at it already, right? It's really about the diversity of the people that you get to work with. And the pace is really very, very fast, right? Because coming from a manufacturing oriented materials company, where the technology is largely the same as, for many, many years. Whereas here, the digital services and the products that Google offers almost seem to change on a daily basis, right? So the work processes have to be inherently different in order to manage for this kind of environment. So that was probably, I think, one of the toughest things for me from a transition standpoint, right? Is getting used to uh, dealing with a little bit of that chaos and the ambiguity that comes with this pace of change. I know it's not a direct answer in terms of what's the worst, but I think that's probably what the biggest thing to adapt to was for me. The best part, like Jolene said, is really the people, right? I think because of the pace and the fact that everything moves so quickly, I think there's a recognition that not everyone can be truly expert at everything at any moment in time. And that really compels everyone to be very open-minded about sharing knowledge, because something that you knew yesterday would be something new for somebody tomorrow. And so that willingness to kind of bring everybody along for the ride is really part of the fun part about being here at Google.
Great, it's really good to hear. Another one just came in as well. So thank you for sharing your experience with us. Interested in learning more about what makes for a successful person on your team. So you both mentioned some traits earlier. Some of you said mindset, problem solving. Our viewers asking, is there anything else that is the secret sauce?
So without going into the specific interview criteria that all of you will go through as you go through the interview process, I think it comes back to, yes, problem solving. But there's this term that has been thrown out called googliness, right? And I think it's a willingness to collaborate and a willingness to learn. That is, I think, fundamental to the culture here. I think the company is successful and is doing as well as it is because of that collaborative spirit. You can be very good and be very expert at what you do, but if you're not willing to share, or if you're not willing to teach and pay it forward in that respect, I think it will be tough to get a role here, because that's how we function on a daily basis, right? All of our success to collaborate cross-functionally is because people are willing to teach. People were willing to teach me when I first joined in my first 6 months, because I knew nothing about Google products. And I like to think that 2 years in, I at least have a decent understanding, but I will never claim to be an expert in that regard.
Another question just came in. So what is a typical day in the Google sales team? Is there
Can I
even
go
a
for it?
typical day?
Yeah, so every day is very different. So maybe I can come in from an account manager's point of view, because it will be slightly different from what Wei Sheng does because he's an industry head. So in a typical day, a lot of time you actually spend with clients and interfacing with clients a lot, because in the large customer sales team, a lot of these clients are very high touch. So we spend a lot of time troubleshooting, finding out more about their business, helping them explain new products, Google products, etc. So that's a large portion of our time dedicated to clients. On the other end, we also spend a lot of time internally with our teams as well. So that's equally important to us, whether it is working across teams to find out what new products it is that they're working on, what exciting projects that they're working on, whether it's collaborating with other members of your team and helping and shaping discussions on how to improve a client's performance, or even simply so upskilling yourself, because we are always constantly on the move. So a lot of time we spend also is to learn more about products and also finding more about the client as well.
Another question came in from Suhanshu, which I think tags on very nicely to this initial question. Are market research and consulting a separate part within the sales team, or are these skills integral to everyone on the sales team?
It's a good question. It's a little bit different depending on which part of Google Sales you belong to. Large customer sales has the benefit of a slightly different org structure, because we actually have a team of industry analysts and insights analysts, if you will. So a lot of the heavy lifting around building customer insights and market research actually gets handled by this team, which is a sort of a shared resource across the different verticals. We're lucky enough to have one analyst, for example, focused only on financial services. So she's essentially responsible for helping the team really build up a deeper understanding of the industry, the trends within the industry, and the consumer behavior within that industry across, say, the 7 or 8 different markets that the team is responsible for. So I would say that within the team, everyone needs to understand the industry in itself. You have to understand the driving force behind why consumers are thinking about financial services in a certain way. because that's the discussion that you will have on a one-to-one basis with each of the banks and insurers that we have relationships with. But the actual research and the studies, for example, don't necessarily have to be done by the team itself.
And Vincent Leong also asked, how steep was the learning curve for you guys? And is there a motto that you kept to?
So unlike Jolene, who at least had some level of digital marketing capability before joining, for me, it was definitely steep. I would like to think that there are parallels between what Google does and what any other B2B sales force outside does, right? Which is my background. And so to me, I think the tip that kept me going and that helped kind of keep the light at the end of the tunnel was the fact that you can find these parallels and draw these analogies across the different industries that you've had experience with before or that you've worked in, right? It's almost like the same but different approach, because there's actually a lot of things that are quite similar. How we manage a sales pipeline or how we manage a prospect pipeline, that's no different than any other B2B sales org out there, right? The narrative that you want to pitch at a C level needs to be built with a certain outcome and an impact statement behind why it makes a difference for that client. That wouldn't be any different than how we did it at a materials company and the value that we brought as a materials company in my previous role to the value that we bring as Google supporting a bank today. So I think finding these parallels actually helps you to ease that transition and that ramp. And then it's really about just getting your head and focusing your time around understanding the product itself. The concepts behind the product will be more intuitive, but it's really just the product and the technology that we bring to the table.
Switching gears a bit, from Eileen Chung. Hi guys, thanks for sharing that new tools and solutions get developed and released on a very rapid rate. How does the company ensure that clients, as well as sales team members here at Google, keep abreast of the changes?
I can share about that. So, like I mentioned just now, everything keeps changing and there are a lot of updates constantly. So everybody has to keep running and trying to keep up to date. So I think the good thing about Google is that we are pretty organized, even though we function very openly. So a lot of communication takes place when new alphas or betas come out. So whenever there's a new product that comes out, comms will definitely take place. There's also a repository that we can go to find out more about tools and products, because literally there is so much. You need a library for these things. And of course, there are specialists in the team as well. So if, let's say, you have a question that you cannot find off the repository or hasn't been comms at all, you can reach out to any of these people and they will be more than willing to help, and they're amazing to work with. So very exciting. And that happens on the Google front, right? But in terms of sharing it with the client, what we really need to do is to make sure that we understand what our client's needs are and try to see whether there is a fit between the product and the client need. And then you take the product and then you go pitch it to the client, make sure that everything is aligned before you get them on board for any alphas or betas, for example. Yeah.
We'll take one final question as we're coming to time, but thank you so much for asking all these wonderful questions. So the final question, it's completely not related to your sales team and sales roles, but a question came in on how easy or how difficult is it really to transition across roles at Google?
So to be candid, I think both of us sitting here are in our first role at Google.
Yeah.
So we haven't actually thought about transitioning yet. I think if I look at other people in my team that have left, for example, I think the ability to rotate is actually quite seamless. Opportunities and roles evolve over time. And again, because some of the skill sets are very portable, it's really about finding the right fit and mapping that to what your own aspirations are from that perspective. So I think one of the things I'll throw out here is that we're very open about roles being available within Google. There's an internal job portal similar to the external job portal. So if you see a role that you're interested in, nothing stops you from putting your hand up and going through the interview process and getting a fair shot at getting that job, right? The hiring manager will treat every candidate with the same objective lens. And even if you didn't get the role at the end of the day, it's still a valuable lesson in terms of what your own strengths and what your own skill sets are, and where maybe you would need to focus on developing if you really wanted to get a role in that particular function, for example. So I've seen team members who have interviewed for a number of different roles over time, and then eventually land one that they really like, and they've moved on, right? And then they feel really happy that they've developed a longer term career path that doesn't only exist within sales here at Google.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been really great insight. I think we're going to wrap up here with the questions. So thank you so much. We've learned so much today. For all the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn a bit more about the digital world, please go ahead and find resources online. There are plenty online that you can search from. We at Google, we're always recruiting and we're always constantly expanding rapidly. And we're looking for passionate individuals who love to solve problems, as you have heard, across all functions in our business. As Wei Sheng has shared earlier, you know that there are functions here from sales, from marketing, from legal, from finance, from operations. Really, it spans across the board. So please go ahead on our careers portal, look out for any role that might be keen for you. Click on apply. So thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting with all of you. We hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.